Yes. Thank you. Okay, so basically the point was that we should get rid of the emotional baggage as soon as possible. And I think one point we made was that uh, emotional baggage is not something we need to be ashamed of or afraid of. And that's why we made the point that just about everybody's carrying some kind of and some amount of emotional baggage. It's quite normal. What's harmful is if we are not able to resolve it. So today we'll talk about how do we resolve the emotional baggage, because otherwise it can be draining and, like I said, and cause a lot of problems. The good news is that the emotional baggage is only as heavy as we decide to let it be. Okay. If we keep getting rid of whatever we get, then it remains light. And if we don't allow the new ones to accumulate, then also it remains light. So those are the things we'll talk about today, how we do that. Because frankly, we have two choices. One is, do we want to live in anger, in pain, in loneliness, and all those kind of things? Or we want to get rid of the emotional baggage and be happy. So what would be your choice?
Lonely.
So I think the answer is obvious. I just more of a rhetorical question. So let's talk about. Sorry, so that brings us to today. But before we do that, anything I missed out or left out, or anything else that is stuck with you and I didn't mention?
Prabhu, you said a beautiful thing. You said, don't react, respond. And that I've heard that many times, but that I've been trying to say that to myself for everything. Like, don't react, respond.
Sure.
You have to give that time.
Yes. A lot of people use the trick of chant 3 times in your mind before you react, and it really works. It really works. Okay, so is there anything else you can think of that I missed from what we discussed? Excuse me, last month.
You also mentioned about us to question, why am I the way I am?
Yes.
Where I am, right? So like, sometimes we ask this question, like, why is this happening to me? But more than that, you said to question that, why am I, if I ever become this person, kind of.
Yes, thank you. We'll talk a little bit more about that today, because a lot of times we can't figure out why am I like this, and when you analyze it, you can get an answer. Then it's easy to move on from there. And certainly, if you feel it's not something, not a quality you want or like, it's not how you want to be, then it's even more important, and you can actually do something about it. So yes, thank you for reminding me, and we will talk a little bit more about that. Was there anything else anybody remembers that we talked about and I didn't mention, like just in summary form?
You also mentioned about how you can be happy regardless of regardless of your emotional baggage. So despite having anger, all these emotions, you can still choose to be happy. These things don't have to make anybody sad.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Yeah, very good point. Yes, very important point. Okay, anything else? All right, so let's move on to the topic today, which is, what can we do about having this emotional baggage? And we'll talk about, different things, and we'll also identify some specific symptoms of emotional baggage and how to get rid of them. If we have time, we'll also talk about relationships. It doesn't have to be boy-girl relationship. It could be any relationship, and what effect emotional baggage has on that, and how do we specifically handle the relationship issues caused by our emotional baggage. So once again, I want to emphasize, I'm not just talking about, although it's part of it, Not just talking about boy-girl relationship, any, could be parent-child, could be sisters, could be friends, brothers, whatever, brother, sister. So we're talking about all sorts of relationships. Okay. Any questions, comments before we start? Okay. All right. So once again, I'd encourage, especially Vaishnavi and Niharika, because it's your first time, don't be shy. If something doesn't make sense, just say, hey. You can be polite and say, I don't understand. I don't know what you mean. And or just be blunt and say, hey, what's that? It's not making any sense. So whatever your style is, it's okay. All right. Okay. So what can you do about this? First thing, the natural thing I would think, you can tell me if you agree, is pay attention to it first. Pay attention to what areas of your life are not working. Like if you don't understand that, if you don't realize that, then it's hard to solve the problem. So we basically identify the problem. So pay attention to what areas of life are not working. Working in the sense that it's not working in the way you would like it. And example could be you have some health issues, you have some relationships that you find unfulfilling, and you want to change that. But you've tried it, but you've not been able to change over the last couple of years or whatever number of years, and you actually want to change that. So that's the first thing. Identify what it is that you want to change and why. I hope you can understand. If you don't do that, it's kind of hard to progress. It's like I'm going, but I don't know where I'm going. So how will you know when you get there? So same thing. If you can't identify what the issue is, what is it that you want to change? How will you change it? So that's the first point. Along with that goes the point of it could be multiple things. So make a list. Make a list of all the things that you want to change in your life. Hopefully you don't have a 5-page, 10-page long list. Hopefully say, a number less than 10. But if not, fine, so be it. But my point is, it doesn't matter how long the actual list is. Make sure you can identify the top of that list. So don't have on your top list more than 10, because then it becomes very difficult to handle. And if you cannot reduce it to less than 10, then we'll talk about perhaps we do need a therapist or something, professional help. Again, sometimes we think there's stigma associated with seeing a therapist. And I'm saying no. It's a healthy thing to do. If you need a therapist, you need a therapist. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing bad about it. It's like, if you got a sore, I got to cure it. No use just hiding it. I got a sore, so I'm going to put an ointment. I got a bandage or whatever it takes. Because after some time, the sore would be gone. If you keep hiding it, it'll get worse. And the same situation with therapists. So there's no stigma should be in your mind. Oh, no, can't do that. Or what will people say? Or that means I'm in the gone case. Nothing like that. Everybody needs help. Like I never get tired of saying two things. Everybody needs help, and everybody needs a mentor. I don't care who you are. I don't care how senior or junior you are. Everybody in the world needs a mentor, and everybody at some point in time in their life, they need help. So there should be no stigma attached to the need to go. Hare Krishna, Sneha.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Good to see you, beta. Okay,
How are
so
you, Prabhuji?
good, beta. Good. How are you?
I'm okay.
Good. She just moved to a new place. So I guess she's still, are you still settling down or settled down already?
Almost settled down.
Oh, good. All right. Okay, good. So we're just talking about what can we do about the emotional baggage. I know you missed the last class, but I sent a recording. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to it. But basically, we had talked about what is emotional baggage, why is it bad for us, why is it good for us. Today, we're talking about how to get rid of it. So we just said that you need to pay attention to what areas of your life are not working. Make a list of things that you want to change. So that's when you came in. Okay. Next, most important thing, perhaps, well, I should say most because they're all very important, is express your feelings. Express your feelings about whatever it is that you feel is not working. Because if you don't express it, you cannot resolve it. Now, does that make sense? I'm going to pause and I'll let you speak. Does it make sense that if you don't express it, you cannot resolve it? Okay, so if you don't identify it, if you don't make your top list, and you don't express it, you cannot resolve it. So all three are very important, right? But just expressing is not enough. You need to resolve it as well. Because remember, if you don't resolve it, it remains an emotional baggage. So again, sometimes you only need to resolve it within yourself. Sometimes you need to resolve it with another person, depending upon what the situation is. If it is with another person, we'll talk about that later on. But right now, I'm talking about when it's possible to resolve it within yourself. Now, that resolution can take different forms. One form is that you just accept it. You say, it is how it is. Let me move on. I'm going to move on. And I'm going to pause again because I want to make sure whatever I'm saying, you're able to understand and internalize, because otherwise this session is no good. You're not going to memorize whatever I'm saying. You need to internalize and make sure you understand and agree. And if you don't agree, I need you to speak. So silence means you're agreeing. I'm just coming out with all these gems and I'm going to feel very good about myself. Otherwise, you need to tell me what you don't understand and what you don't agree with. Is that fair? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So pay attention to whatever you want to change, make a list of things you want to change, and then look at them one at a time and express your feelings about them and resolve within yourself. And resolution could be, I can't change this. This is out of my control. I'm just going to accept it and I'm going to move forward. Now, would somebody like to talk about how easy or difficult it is to just move on and accept it? Anybody?
Niharika is raising her hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, Niharika, go ahead.
Yes. Yes. So my question, I have a question. Like,
Uh-huh.
we know the things we are facing difficulties. We know what happened. Like you said, we make a list of things what's happening. But however, despite knowing everything, how why it's difficult to accept it and move on. Like let it go. It's letting go is hard. How do we do that?
Yeah, so we will
How do I
definitely,
accept?
so we will talk about that. Right now, I was just identifying things we have to do. So if you give me a few more minutes, we'll discuss in great detail, actually, how to let go, because you're absolutely right. It's not easy.
Right.
It's not easy at all. Some things may be easy, but some things are not at all easy. So right now, all we're saying is that this is what you need to do. Then we'll talk about how do you actually do it. So please allow me a few more minutes and we'll talk about
Yes,
that,
yes,
okay?
absolutely. Okay.
Okay. Anybody, but that's a great question, by the way. So I appreciate that. Anybody else?
Prabhu, there's this beautiful thing that I once heard that when a child is born, parents give birth to two kids, one child that they want to see grown up and one child that actually is, right? And I feel it's very true for all of us because I would have a different definition of who I want to be, and that is nowhere close to who I am.
Mhm.
So the constant struggle in also in like spiritual life, the growth that we want to believe that we are there, that we have no worries, we're in a happy zone, we have everything in our life. But we have to acknowledge that there are these deeper things that somehow don't surface because we keep pushing it down. And it could be anything small. So I feel like it's not even accepting it. Before accepting is allowing yourself to feel that way. Somehow we don't allow. like maybe I don't know, somebody has not allowed themselves to feel like after their 8th round in the day, they are just doing it like mechanical. It's no more, it's more in the fear of I promised my guru. Or it could be like somebody who goes to school, has done schooling in engineering for so many years of their life, and suddenly at the age of 30, 35, they feel like, you know what, I want to be an artist. So uh, the problem is when we are just holding on to habits that we think make us, but it's the opposite. It's we that make those habits, you
Yes.
know.
Yes, and it happens quite often. It's not an isolated situation. It happens quite often. So some people are able to resolve it and move on. I had a friend. He was with me at IIT. He spent 5 years doing engineering. He came to Vancouver actually, and 2 years later he went to med school. 7 years he spent in med school. So actually I asked him, I said, hey, what's this? He said, my father forced me to become an engineer. I can't be an engineer. I'm not an engineer. I want to be a doctor. So he spent 7 more years, basically 5 years or plus 2 years working, whatever he was doing as an engineer. 7 years of his life wasted because his father wanted that. But at least he was able to resolve it. And he never got out of touch with his feeling that he is no engineer at heart. So some people are able to do it, but a lot of people, I agree with you, are not. But they can become very unhappy if somehow or the other, first of all, they don't identify, then try to resolve within and say, okay, what are these things that I need to change? And that was the other point, right? What are these things that I need to change? And then work at changing it. We'll also talk about getting help, outside help. So, sometimes you actually need not necessarily a professional therapist, but maybe a mentor, maybe a senior devotee, maybe a senior relative, somebody you can trust, a friend, whatever, but somebody to lean on, somebody to get advice from, somebody to run your ideas by. Like I said, we all need that. Okay. All right. So the main point that we were on was let yourself express your feelings. It becomes very difficult when you, as you were saying, keep on suppressing them. Then it becomes very difficult. So when you express it, then it comes out. Satyamohan Prabhu, you were trying to say something? And if you don't mind, can you turn your video on? Just at least I can see. I never met you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, that was pranam.
Hare Krishna.
My camera is not working Prabhuji.
Okay, all right, no problem. Go ahead.
Still. So it's my first session, Prabhuji. Just
Yes.
today Nandi Mukhi told
Yes,
me.
yes.
Thank you for such
Oh,
a
you're
beautiful
very
comment.
welcome. Very welcome.
Thank you, sir. Prabhuji. So Prabhuji, I have one question, whatever I'm listening to, maybe. That you said we don't need to suppress our feelings and just need to express them, that what we are like feeling within inside, that it's not going right. But there is a problem sometimes, like there is I was just discussing it with someone, like what if I want to discuss it with a person, but the position comes as a restriction in that. For example, there's a thing going on with the senior devotee, and it's not at all favorable in, like, on my side, what I think. So I might not be able to express to him that, no, Prabhuji, it was not a good thing on your side that you talked to me like this. No, it was so rude. And he's a very senior devotee. So, but I am constantly feeling so bad, so depressed about, like, why he has to say like this. So what we should do that at that moment?
Yes, Prabhu. Excuse me. Excellent question, by the way, and happens a lot.
A lot. Yes,
It
Prabhuji.
happens
Yes.
a lot. So again, you're not alone in this. And so, Prabhu, what I'll tell you is that if you have not said anything to this person, it's probably not a bad thing. However, if you don't say anything or don't get it resolved, it'll get worse. So the thing to do is to see if there's someone else in the temple whom you can trust, who has either a good relationship with this particular devotee or is at the same or more senior level.
Oh.
And you ask his help or her help to communicate on your behalf. in a proper way. She or he can explain that, you are feeling hurt or upset or whatever. You're being very respectful, so that's why you're not saying anything, but you're bothered by this, and it's a very humble request from you to, to please help you understand why your comment was made. What is it that you want this person to do, like Satyamohan Prabhu to do? Tell me or tell him, so get this thing resolved. Hopefully that would not be offensive to the senior devotee that you're referring to, especially if that senior devotee has some respect for the person who's speaking to him. If you try to do it on your own, Prabhu, 99% of the time, not always, but 99% of the time, it will take a wrong way in that, who are you, junior guy, telling me what to do, what not to do?
Exactly.
Even if you're right, it will not be accepted. So that's why you need somebody else's help. But the point that we are both on is, by speaking to another person, you're able to express your feelings, which is the most important part. And then get it resolved with the help of somebody else.
Thank you, Prabhuji. But at the same time, what I think that I was just talking to, like, I can say Jennifer, she was in the temple today. Jennifer, she was asking you the question right next before to me. I was just discussing to her the biggest problem, like what I face, that even if he said something, if some senior devotee said something to me, I cannot say anything to him, but still it's keep on going in my mind. And at the same time, I'm thinking that it might be my bad karma, or I did something wrong. And as a senior Vaishnava etiquette, he has the right to say anything to me, that I should be just keep my mouth shut and just listen to him and treat him as like one of my very seniors, a great Vaishnava, because I'm just no one. I'm servant of Amdas and Udas. It's my duty just to respect him at every moment. But at the same time, when we think from a material note, that no, it's not going to work like this. So there is a conspiracy going on. There is two ironical things going in my mind. So I'm just confused sometimes.
Do you know what the
Prabhu,
problem is?
what I told him was that it does reflect in your life, in your association, the temple, but it's more got to do just about your nature as a person. And what I told him was that if that situation happened that time, and if you genuinely respect this individual who has hurt you in that way, you should have been able to stand there and told him that I'm hurt. Can you tell this to me in a better way? Because I respect you so much and I love you, and you should talk to me in a better way, because I'm crying. That's what I told him. And I told him, agar tabhi tune kuch nahi bola, abhi bol ke koi fayda nahi. I said, tabhi ke tabhi, you should have done it. It doesn't, this postmortem thing hurts people, because although we see somebody as a senior devotee, we don't know whether they have that self-esteem and that ability to swallow this. If this is told after 2 or 3 days. So they'll think in the middle, you have spoken about it to somebody else, and you've thought about it, and you've made like soup out of it, So I mean, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I just told him that you should learn to take a stand for yourself in a very respectful manner, out of affection for the individual you're talking to. Because what good is Vaishnav Parampara if you can't express to your devotees, to your seniors? I mean, the first person I should be able to express to are people who are my mentors. If I can't tell them what I feel, how are they going to help me anywhere?
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, go ahead, Pooh.
And one more question, Prabhuji, like what you were saying, it's very, I like that concept that we should talk to some senior devotees at the same level position and they're good friends. But I have already gone through one phase in my life that I talked to some senior devotee who is a good friend. Both of them are good friends. They all are at the same position. But at the same time, after 1 week or after 2 weeks, I get to know that there is a big porridge going on. There's a like backstabbing going on. They made a new news about you, and it's a new concept going like even I'm not aware of that thing. That, for example, like you say, I stole something, and I told Prabhuji I didn't stole. Then he said, you know what? He told that you stole that thing. So it's a new concept. Different, like I offended, like in the friend zone also there is a backstabbing going on, and you become the culprit. So whom I can trust?
Yeah. So I mean, it's a slightly different topic, but a very, very good point. It happens a lot. The problem with the devotees is we are not pure. And worst problem is we are human beings with all our defects, all of us. It's a serious problem.
Yes, Prabhuji,
It's a
exactly.
serious problem. And so we have our egos or false egos, that's to put it more correctly. We have our vested interests. And because of that ego, we all like to feel superior. We chant Amani na man then, which is give respect, don't expect respect. But we do exactly the opposite. All those things, Prabhu. I mean, in every temple, it's the same story. Devotees from anywhere, they have the same story. So
Yes.
unfortunately, that's the fact of life. And people will do some nonsense. Lucky are those who have thick skin, who don't let little things not bother them, but not all of us have thick skin. Right? It takes a very large amount of high self-esteem, high self-confidence to have thick skin. And not all of us do. So I can understand what you feel, what you're feeling, how you're feeling. Unfortunately, if you speak to that person, I mean, if you really, as Jennifer was saying, you can phrase it properly, the most humble way, and maybe, make a sad face or whatever when you're speaking, it might work. But still, it's a risky proposition. It will work sometimes, it won't work sometimes. It just depends upon that other person. For some people who actually welcome your input and say, I never realized that. I'm so sorry. I did not mean it that way at all, blah, blah, blah. And everything will be fine. But some of us devotees are not there. And the false ego and the pride and, I'm senior, how dare you speak to me like that? All those come in play and make it worse. So, I mean, try it, say it works, but work on the person and on yourself also. I don't know you at all, so I hope I'm not going to say something offensive, but one of the things that I try to tell people, and I work with a lot of people your age, by the way, a lot of them, like 50, 100, something like that. Yeah, I mean, learn to be accepting of, some criticism. Learn to be accepting of, advice, but you don't have to take injustice. And obviously the definition of injustice would depend from person to person, situation to situation, but decide in your own mind, is this justice or is this something, he's just being a, I don't want to use any bad words, just a, silly person or whatever. I think you all know what I'm trying to say. And so be it. I don't have to stoop down to that level. Right? And take the high road. I know it's easy to say, but still, I think we can take high road a lot of times. Not all the time, but a lot of times. And probably you will find that if you don't react, a lot of people are like bullies. If you don't react, they stop bullying you. And that's a guarantee. I mean, I can tell you when I came here, a young 21-year-old back in 1969. But anyway, at that time, the acceptance of, non-white people was, like this much, and people would try to bully me. People would try to, take advantage. But I'm one of those people who, and I'm not trying to brag, that I have a very high self-esteem. I'm very self-confident, and I take on anybody. But I don't take on in a fight. I take on people with my humor. And vast majority of the people cannot handle humor. Sounds sort of funny, but they can't. So you give them a sarcastic response or something that changes the mood. And after a few days, they become your friends. And that's exactly what happened with me.
Exactly.
So try that. Okay. And people can get too upset when you're saying something in a humorous way.
Yeah. Yes.
It's
Yes.
difficult. And then after a little while, they'll get it and they'll stop. It really works. I mean, I've done it many times. And I taught my children the same way. This is how you handle the bullies. Unfortunately, I have 3 of them. None of them got, bullied a lot or any such significant amount. Everybody gets bullied a little bit, but it was fine.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Sure.
Thank
You're
you
welcome.
so much.
Sure.
I loved your answers, and I just want to say one thing. This is the best ever session I had on, like, the best session I wanted in my life. I never thought of that someone is going to discuss that material and spiritual life all together. You gave so nice points. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm going to join it forever. I will
Thank
be a
you.
member of this
I
class.
appreciate that very much. And I'll thank Nandimukhi for getting you involved.
Thank you,
So,
Prabhuji.
yeah. So actually, at some point in time, I'll get your email address. I include you in the mailing list.
Yeah,
So
thank
you
you.
don't miss out the information. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah, sure. You're welcome. Abhinav, you have your hand up?
Yes, Prabhu, I have a question.
Go
So the
ahead.
question is, where do we draw the middle ground between tolerating and expressing ourselves? Like in Krishna consciousness, right? Like usually like nectar of instruction, I think it's like whatever like insults, like if we get insulted by someone, we're asked to tolerate it, right? Not to respond, not to become angry or something like that, right? So my question is, where do we draw the middle ground between expressing ourselves and actually tolerating some of the bad stuff that happens to us, not just for other devotees, but by like people in general?
Yeah, but I think that question is a very good question, but the answer will depend upon the individual. We all have our different limits. So only you can decide, what you will tolerate, what you will not. So for example, I'll give you just a random example. Like most Indians, I worship my mother. And you insult me to the fullest degree to your heart's content, I probably will not react. But you say one bad word against my mother, I'll kill you. I'm sorry to use strong language, but that's how strongly I feel. So that's my limit. Some people I know, and I'm not exaggerating, I've heard them use the B word for their mother. So that's the other extreme. So they will clearly not understand my answer. So that's what I'm saying, or rather how I react. So it depends upon you. You have to define what you will tolerate, what you will not. It's just like the personal space. Everybody has their own personal space, but you get to define it. Your personal space may be very different from my personal space. But again, like your question about tolerance, I guard my personal space like anything. I do not let anybody, even my best friend, invade my personal space. Outside of that, whatever. So similarly, you have to decide what you will tolerate, what you will not tolerate. Right? And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you should never fight. There are times when you fight. Even Krishna said there's 6 kinds of aggressors who should be killed. Now, I'm not talking about killing, but my point is that sometimes you have to be aggressive. Otherwise, you get treated like a rug on the floor and everybody stomps all over you. And I will never allow anyone to stomp all over me. It doesn't matter who they are. I'll give you an example. I had a boss. He was the vice president of the company, a very large company, and I was the manager for Ontario region. And he got appointed to his job. He used to be one of another region's manager, so like my peer, then became the boss. And then every second, third day, he'll call me to his office, tell me something, and then repeat it 7 times minimum. Like telling me was bad enough, but that's fine. You tell me once, but telling me the same thing 7 times in 5 minutes, not acceptable. So after second or third time, I stopped him. I said, Ian, let me tell you something. My IQ is more than 150. I get it the first time. I don't need you to repeat it 7 times, so please stop it now. There was a shocked look on his face. And he started smiling. He said, thank you. And we became very good friends. And he was my direct boss. Right? So that's my point. You get to decide what you will tolerate, what you will not. You draw the lines. Like, this is my red line, man. You're not crossing this. My Lakshmana Rekha. You're not crossing this. Outside of that, I really don't care. My mother used to have sayings. She used to say, everybody understand Hindi? Okay. So she used to say, हाथी चले जाते हैं, कुत्ते भौंकते रहते हैं. So if somebody is doing something like that, just in your mind say kutta 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 bhog raha hai, kutta 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 bhog, and then you're fine. So I mean that's what I do seriously. I don't let small things bother me, but if you cross the line, you'll get it. So I don't know, Abhinav, if I answered your question, but that's what I do.
You answered my question, Prabhu. Sometimes I feel like I don't know what the right boundary is. Like sometimes when I read Shastra, right, like it presents like such a there's such a high standard of tolerance, right? And it's like if you so I guess the problem that I have is I sometimes don't know how to use like what we read in Shastra in regards to tolerating things and how to actually apply that to my real life.
Okay, actually, I'm glad you asked, because that's another point I should make. That is, don't try to be somebody you are not. The people who make it to the scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam are very special, very elevated people living in different time. We are in Kali Yuga, and we are not Kardam Muni, we're not Kashyap Muni, and we're not, whoever else you can think of. Right? We're not King Rishabh and all those kind of people. We are Abhinav, we are Rupanuga. With all our weaknesses, all our faults, loving it. So therefore, you, whoever you are, going to have to learn to live with my faults, my weaknesses, and my preferences. Don't bother me if you can't get along with me. We can be friends from a distance. It's perfectly all right. I don't have to be your enemy. You don't have to be my enemy. But we don't have to be friends either. So here's my line. Respect it. If you don't respect it, we're done. And don't blame yourself for having a red line. We all should have. Actually, I'm going to say we all must have a red line, our personal space. Nobody's allowed to invade that. It doesn't matter who you are. Do not invade my personal space. I'll give another example. I hope not dragging it. I'll give one other example. Again, very personal. You may not even agree with it. That's fine. Very personal example. I don't like people standing very close to me. I need at least a 2-foot distance between my nose and your nose. And some people have it, they want to come 6 inches closer to me. And I move back, and they move forward, then I move back, move forward, then I go like this. Please. And I'm not talking about COVID days, I'm talking pre-COVID. So people have to respect that. And again, very small example, but my point is you're telling them. You're invading my person. Same thing with time. I do a lot of mentoring, I do a lot of things, I get a lot of calls. But when I'm busy, I will not take the call. And I'll tell you, can you call back in half an hour, or can I call you back in half an hour, or whatever. But I will not take the call and be miserable in my mind that, I got to do something else, I'm talking. Why should I punish myself? Right? If just very politely, very straightforward, you say, Prabhu, I'm busy, can I call you back? And somebody doesn't respect that, well, they don't deserve your friendship. So I don't know if I'm too radical for you, but that's who I am.
No, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Thank you for being like very open and blunt about this, because like sometimes I feel like, I don't know, like for me, I'm still having I don't know where my boundaries are. I'm still trying to figure that out for myself, but knowing that I can choose to be a little bit strict, and it's not bad if I'm a little strict. Like, thank you for sharing. Thank you for making me realize that it's okay if I'm a little strict. I don't have to be so open.
Yeah, strict doesn't mean rude, by the way.
Okay.
So yeah, make sure you understand that. Strict does not mean rude. You can be very polite, but still very strict.
Okay.
And you should be polite. I'm not saying you start yelling at people, you start using bad words or whatever. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not even saying bad body language. It will be very friendly, in a very loving way. There's an expression, says, "A chappal bhigo ke maro." Which feels like, a loving thing, but it's still the sandal hitting your face. So it's like the definition of diplomacy is you tell somebody to go to hell and he asks for directions and thanks you.
Oh, wow.
right? And that you should learn. Every one of us should learn how to say something that's unpalatable in a way that because not just palatable, but we'll become eager to say, okay, yeah, let me know how I do it.
How do we learn that? How do we learn
Practice,
that?
practice. Come to Rupanuga Prabhu.
I think that comes from knowing that knowing your self-worth, knowing
Thank
that you
you.
have your
Thank you.
values
Yes,
in place,
absolutely.
and
Absolutely. That is the
knowing
thing.
knowing that your intention was never wrong. Simple. If your intent is wrong, you deserved it. That's how I take it. If my intent was to not share food with somebody and they got offended because I didn't share, makes sense because my intent was not to share food with them. But if my intent was like, I'm so hungry that I'm not even looking left or right and somebody's feeling bad that I didn't share food with them, honestly, that time the only thing I was thinking of was prasad. So, I mean, Prabhu, I think one thing I remember is when I changed my school, I went from one convent school to another convent school, and it was a girls' school. So, you know how girls are, they're all about plastic surgery from the first day in life. So they're always like, your nose is like this, your hand is like this, your tomb. And with Indian girls, so much body hair. You've this, you've that, like all these problems, plus puberty. So you don't really know your thoughts. And my Hindi teacher would say, कि ये जो टीनेज वाला उम्र है इतना ना तुम बेवकूफ ना समझदार, she would tell us. दोनों के बीच में तुम अटके हुए हो. So it was like that. And I figured one day one of my teacher told me this, that it's very simple. If someone criticizes you without giving you a solution to the problem, don't take it. Don't take it.
Good.
And I loved it. And she's very important in my life till date. And even now, so when some people come up to me and they'll say, you should have done this better. So I'll be like, yeah, how should I have done this better? Tell me. And if they're like, it's better. I'm like, define better. Tell me, show me better. And if you can't show it to me, you know what? Let's not talk about it. I think I did the best. So that's how it is usually.
Yes.
If you're coming up with a critique, just like how we got marked in India, we would get 9 out of 10, 4 out of 5. That's it. There was no explanation given by a teacher. Why do we have that 4 out of 5? Why not 4.5?
Yes,
right?
yes.
Given, that's it. And a plus star or something next to it. But over here, you have a rubric. So they actually put you into a zone and they tell you that this is the full detailed explanation of why you got what you got. And that really helps because that's quantifiable feedback. It's transferring to your next time. So now when I go to the temple and I make mistakes, I actually ask the person, senior devotees who's teaching, that आप मुझे एक बार ये दिखा के करो, एक बार दिखा दो, अगली बार मैं ठीक से करूंगी. पर अगर आप दिखाओगे नहीं तो मैं हर बार गलत करूंगी.
Sure.
So एक बार दिखा दो. Just like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sorry, Satyamohan Prabhu, you were saying something?
No, I agree with Jennifer. She always do this thing.
Yes.
She has a habit. It's perfect.
Yes. Actually, there's one other thing I just thought of in answer to Abhinav's question. There's two things that we should use in excess, and that is love and humor. If you have a loving relationship with somebody and you say something unpalatable, it's a lot more easily accepted than when the love is not there in the relationship. That's one point. The second point is that the same thing said in a humorous way is a lot more palatable than said in a serious tone. And if you can develop a reputation of having a very good sense of humor and a loving person, you can get away with just about anything. And I'm again speaking from personal experience. My wife sometimes complains to me that I say the same thing and they get upset, and you say the same thing and nobody says anything. Right? And it is exactly that. So learn to love, develop a sense of humor. Now, some of you may say, well, that's not easy. It's not that difficult either. We can develop those two things. And you can get away with just about anything if you can do that. Okay. Did anybody agree with that, or?
Yes, Prabhu.
That's so true.
That is so true. And that's the only reason, I mean, there are so many Netflix shows that we watch where there are these arrogant people, but we love them because they have sarcasm, not so much humor, but they're sarcastic. So they let you drown in your own misery of intellect. They don't tell you anything. And that's worse. I mean, if कोई आगे मुझे बोले कि तुम गधी हो, बुरा लगेगा. But you know, if you like, who's the donkey in the room? You're
Yeah,
like,
that's
maybe
right.
me. I don't know.
That's right.
So it's like,
Yeah. Okay. All right. So should we come back to the topic? We kind of digressed quite a bit today. Okay. So we said pay attention, or make a list of things that are bothering you that you want to change. Express your feelings and move on, or before moving on, I should say. Next is, it's not something binary. It's wrong today, tomorrow it will be right. So you need to give time. It's a process. The healing is a process. Changing is a process. So it might take, a day, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, maybe 6 months. So don't be in a rush to fix it. Give it some time. Taking the time to heal does not mean it's a failure. You're a failure. It's just certain things take time. It's like if you are building a house, you put cement on a brick and put another brick on it, it'll take a couple of days for the cement to dry. You can't rush it. Right? So same thing here. Things take time to heal. Change takes time. And so allow it. Okay? Actually, time is the best gift you can give to yourself. Let it happen. There's a verse in Nectar of Instruction. I don't know if anybody has read Nectar of Instruction, which says Utsahat Nishchayat Dhairya, which means enthusiasm, determination, and patience. They're very handy in increasing your devotional attitude. So same thing with this. Give it time. And we talked about getting help. So consider getting help. We cannot solve all our problems by ourselves. So seek help. Yes, you're entitled to a safe place. You're entitled to deal with a safe person who will respect the confidentiality of whatever, and someone who is empathetic. Does everybody understand the difference between empathy and sympathy? Please, somebody say it.
Sympathize is when you're sorry for somebody, but empathy is when you feel them and you put yourself in their place and
Right.
feel like what they're going through.
Right, exactly. So empathy becomes very important. And without empathy, you cannot validate other person's feelings either. And a lot of times that is very important. If you don't validate other person's feelings, then things become worse or can become worse, because everybody needs validation. Let's face it. Is there anybody here who doesn't care if their feelings are validated? Yes, no? I see 2 people going like this. 2 people very. So Vaishnavi, Chaitanya, I need some feedback.
No, Prabhuji, that I used to seek validation at every point once in my life, but now I'm trying to change that.
Okay.
So, but I still do require validation sometimes.
I think, by the way, I'm not talking about extremes, but we all need validation.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Right? And I jokingly tell people, listen, if you want to praise me, don't stop. Just go crazy. Take your time and go ahead and, keep praising me until you get tired. So don't worry about that. Okay. Everybody needs validation.
I think for me, it's just when I was younger, I used to seek a lot of validation, especially from like friends and things like that. But as I grew up, I feel like things that are important to me, it feels nice when I do get validated for something that I enjoy doing or something that's important to me. but I feel like that constant need for validation has like significantly reduced, especially since like as I've grown up through life, it's that seeking validation has definitely reduced. But
Yeah.
I used to remember like I always wanted validation, which was like essentially something that really brought me down as also is because if I didn't get that validation, it would be quite sad as a
understand.
kid. But I feel like as I've grown up and like gone through many experiences, it's things that are important to me when I'm validated in something that I enjoy doing or that's important. It just feels nice, but that constant need for validation is not
I
there.
agree. So maybe I didn't express myself well. I totally agree with what you said. What I meant was that, for example, if you are feeling in a certain way about something and you're very upset, and you go to your friend or your senior or whatever, and he poo-poos it. He says, I don't know why you're so worried about this. And that's the validation I'm talking about. You get very upset when somebody says, oh, you're silly to feel that way. Why are you feeling this way? This is crazy. That feels bad. I'm talking about validation of that kind, where somebody says, oh, even if I don't agree, I'm validating your feelings, that I can understand why you feel that way. And then I can tell you why I don't feel that way, what you can do about this. But if I don't validate your feelings, we're not going anywhere. So that's what I really meant to say. I wasn't talking about seeking validation. That's different. And you're right, with maturity, that goes away, the seeking part.
Prabhu, like you spoke last time on the same topic, and you said that, sometimes when people go up to someone and they say, I'm struggling, I'm having a bad time, then they say, don't worry, you're privileged, you have food, water, shelter, think of that. But that's actually a nuisance, because at that moment you want to actually hear the validation and be like, I understand that time.
That's exactly right. That's what I'm talking about. Right? Or somebody
Yes,
says,
I agree.
sorry, but
I agree with whatever Jennifer said.
Good,
Yes.
good. Or sometimes people say, oh, you're suffering so much, just your karma, don't worry about it. And give me a break, man. I just broke my leg, my head hurts, and you're telling me it's my karma. I know that already. I don't to hear that from you. So it's things like that. Okay. Anyway, so the point was that consider getting help if you're not able to help yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. Any mentor, a good friend, a trusted friend, I should say, a trusted senior person in your life, whether it's devotee or non-devotee, doesn't matter. It depends upon the situation. And sometimes it may be a professional. There's nothing wrong. There's no stigma should be attached to having to go seek, professional help. But empathy is very important, because empathy, when you get empathy, you feel somebody's giving you the space to feel what you feel. When you get no empathy, then you say, I can't feel what I feel. I'm not allowed to feel what I feel. And that is the worst feeling. Okay, so that's why we have to learn, and we can expect somebody to validate our feelings when we're suffering. It may be nothing to you, but means a lot to me. It may not be important or big thing to you, but it is very important, very big to me. So those kind of things. And then, look for recommendations, etc., from people you trust. Okay. Did that make sense so far? Okay, good. So I should also point out that we not only have to worry about unloading the emotional baggage, you also have to be equally worried about not taking on more. Because if you shed 5 pounds and take 6, you're not winning. So both things you have to be, and a lot of times people tell me that journaling or coaching or even meditation, mentors, they can help a lot in not taking on more by resolving whatever emotional issue is before it becomes a burden. So again, I was saying before, every one of us should have a mentor, if not multiple mentors, although multiple mentors should always be areas that are independent of each other, because otherwise you'll get contradictory advice and you'll get really confused. It's like, some senior citizens, they go to 5 doctors for the same ailment and they get 5 different medicine and they buy them all and they eat them, they get more sick. They end up in hospital. So actually 50% or better hospitalization of senior citizen is from medicine that they did not need, or they contradicted each other. So they don't tell other doctor that I'm seeing other 4. So they give medicine not knowing, they give medicine that'll contradict this one, and then get a reaction and becomes worse. So you have to be careful. Okay. I'm going to pause for a minute, see if there are any questions or any other comments before I talk about specific types of emotional baggage and how to get rid of that.
I have a question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
How do we respond to something which is causing us emotional pain, but we may not be responsible for that? Like if we are, so all these things that we're talking about are things that we can still control, like control on our attitude, control how we think about it. But what if there is a situation where, like, it's just a general idea that, and usually I notice that the stronger I get these weird situations that I'm supposed to take care of, which has got nothing to do with me, like nothing to do with me at all. I'm like a total third party in there. But what I feel is it's easier to control situations where you're directly involved. But if you're not involved in the situation at all, then how should that emotional baggage of somebody else be handled or spoken to or addressed to in general, in an unbiased but still an empathetic manner? If you're trying to help someone, but
okay.
but you don't want to be like, because it's wrong. Like if someone is expressing their feelings to you, it's also not right to say, you know what, you're right, you have gone through very bad times, you are facing the most pain, because that's also wrong. You never know what the other person or other people involved in the situation have gone through. You may not have the full picture of things. So when you're unknown to the second half of how things are going, how do you approach that?
Excellent question. So you learn that as a process of mentoring, or you learn it as a parent, because two of your kids will come and he did this, and she did this, and and you don't know what's the truth. So if you take one side or the other, you'll probably be wrong. And the same thing happens. A lot of people give only their version of events. And so you have to be very careful. Again, you don't want to be rude. You don't want to be callous. You don't want to come across as not validating whatever they're feeling. So it does become tricky. But the point that you should always remember is, a lot of times these people who are coming to you, they're not looking for an answer. They're just looking for a shoulder to lean on, an ear to be listened to. And so you do that and you wait. 90%, not always, but 90% of the time they'll go saying, thank you for your advice, when you haven't even opened your mouth. Thank you for your advice. This really helped me. Thank you so much. And they'll go away actually happy. So that's the first thing you should do. Just listen. Listening is a very important skill. And maybe one day we should talk about, listening skills. Because, when you think about this, and I'm digressing a little bit, which one of you has gone to a school where they taught you how to listen? Which one of you did? There's no course. There's no credit 101 listening skills. It's not taught. I mean, talking we learn from hearing other people. But how do you learn how to be a good listener? So you have to practice. You have to be told what the tricks are. So if you are and there are different kinds of listeners, I don't want to get into details, but if you are the effective listener, and you can show that very clearly with your expressions, with your body language, all these kind of things, And if the person feels they got listened to, 90% of the time they'll go, because that's all they're looking for. They just want to get it out of their chest. They said it, they got a good listener, they're happy. The other 10% of the time when they're looking for more than that, then you have to ask some probing questions, again, in a very loving way, trying to determine what the real situation is. And the best way to do that is ask them open-ended questions that will force them to give the complete picture. Similarly, you can even ask hypothetical questions like, so why do you think that person did this? So why do you think that person did that? And let them answer it. And again, out of the remaining 10%, 9 of them would be, you know what, it's not a big deal. Or no, you know what, I understand. Right? And that 1% of the time it happens, then deal with it. I don't know if that addressed your point.
It did, Prabhu. All I took away that, you're supposed to just listen to them, let them talk, let them hear themselves when they're talking, because we don't get to do that a lot, hear
That's
ourselves
right.
talk.
Exactly.
And then just after that, just ask open-ended questions, which make them reflect more, and again, hear them talk, and then they can take care of it. Never advise in these situations, because they should do what they want to do.
Actually, I teach the course on mentorship. And one of the points I make is that do not give advice unless absolutely necessary. And certainly do not be prescriptive. So let the other person make a decision. You can give options, which you should as a mentor. Here are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever options. Here are the relative values of each other, pros and cons of each other. Now you go decide. And I'll give examples. People have come to me saying, should I get married? Or should I get married to this person? I mean, how the hell do I know? Right? So, I never answer those questions. I talk about options and I ask them, I talk about what they should be looking for, or ask them to tell me what you're looking for and then see if that meets it. Things like that. But I never answer those questions. But I help them make their mind up. And that's all they're looking for. They want help to make up their mind. Because just imagine if I say, yeah, go ahead, get married to this person, and 2 years later they're divorced, they'll both come to me and say, it is your fault. I don't need that. Right? So it's just little things like that. But anyway, let's come back to our topic of today. So how do we get rid of some specific types of emotional baggage? I'm sorry, Vaishnavi, I'm reading your body language. You want to ask a question? There's a question mark on your face. No?
No,
okay.
no.
Okay, all right. Okay. So one of the types of emotional baggage is what I would call guilt. So we develop these guilts or guilt complexes for whatever reason. So what is guilt? Guilt basically is you can call it a worry or a feeling of unhappiness that you get because you think you've done something wrong. Right? Does that definition make sense? The guilt is from you think you've done something wrong. So you're feeling unhappy, you're feeling sorry, or you're worried about it. For example, in a relationship, somebody cheats on their partner, and now they're feeling guilty because they did something wrong. Or I'll never forget this situation. I was very young at that time, and we had a maid servant. She was like 85 years old. And one day I was trying to study, and she was coughing and coughing and coughing. And I remember telling her to stop it. And she blessed me when I said that. And then I went to sleep. Next morning, she passed away. This happened, I don't know, 60 years ago, whatever. And to date, I feel guilty. Why did I yell at this person? She left her body next day. So my point is, things like that can happen in your life. And you carry that guilt. Now, why did I do that? So good to get rid of the guilt. What do we do? Any ideas? How do you get rid of guilt?
Bro, I don't think all guilt is bad, right? Like some guilt can help you stay like, at least for me, like sometimes when I feel like if I do something wrong and I feel guilty about it, then I might be more inclined to not do it the next time. But if I'm unnecessarily feeling guilty about something, then like I guess I think there's like two types of guilt. Guilt that encourages you to not repeat those mistakes again, and guilt that isn't really that like productive, that doesn't really like help you stay away from bad things.
Yeah, you're right on the spot. Yes, absolutely. So basically, find out what's the root of it. Why are you feeling guilty? What's the root cause, right? Um, and one thing that we should not do is don't judge yourself. Like, don't judge yourself too harshly. Sometimes we are the worst critics of ourselves. So don't be that. Be a realistic, uh, um, and certainly don't get into I should have or shouldn't have done it. I mean, it's happened, right? There's nothing you can do. It's like they said, arrow once shot cannot be returned. It's going to go and hit whatever it's going to hit. So it's too late. So focus on forgiving yourself. Okay, I made a mistake, but done, man. That happened 60 years ago. And so and as Abhinav was saying, learn from your guilt, so you can turn the negative into positive. Right? We can always learn. And once again, so for example, if that person was still alive, I'd go and apologize. So similarly, if you're feeling some kind of a guilt, the person is still around, go and apologize. I also do a course on how to apologize, by the way, because not everybody knows how to apologize. And I'll give you an example of my two grandkids. When they were 4 and 6, they got into a big fight, loud, big fight. So my daughter was yelling at them. They were not listening. So finally she grabbed them by hands, sat them down and said, you say sorry to each other. So one turned to the other, one said, sorry. The other one said, sorry. And that was the end. That is not an apology. That is not an apology. What are some of the main ingredients of a good apology? Anybody, just quickly?
Telling why you're like adding
Right.
priest. I'm sorry because I did
Exactly.
this.
Absolutely. So that's one. Absolutely right. What's the second one?
That you won't repeat it again.
Yes,
Like
I
you're
promised
saying.
not to repeat. What's the another one?
Admitting that it caused pain to
Yes,
somebody.
absolutely. Absolutely. And that you're really sorry for that. Yes. Keep going. What else?
Also willing to hear the other person, how they felt when you did something. Just
Right.
to know.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Okay. So yeah, those are some of the very important ingredients. If you don't say, and actually I sometimes I'm not very good person. Sometimes people come to apologize to me. If I don't think they're sincere, I ask them, so please tell me why you're apologizing. What are you apologizing for? I make them say it. And if they can't express it, then it's not a sincere apology. Right? So apologies needs to be sincere. So sincerely apologize to whoever you've done wrong and you're feeling that guilt.
Prabhu, there was this big lawsuit once against this gentleman in a big corporate company of sexual harassment by his coworker, female coworker, and he said something very weird about her being pregnant. That's why not being good at work or something like that. And they still fall under in the guidelines of sexual harassment. And then it was a huge suit, and it came out the papers and everything in India. And then later the thing went off. Like suddenly there was like the girl has taken the case away. And when I was reading it, I was like, why did she take it away? He said such mean things. And she said that all I wanted to hear was, I'm sorry. And there was no reason for me to bring up your pregnancy with your work. Because if you really cared about your pregnancy, you would not have been at work. You would have been sitting at home on your maternity. But
Right.
you were still here, just like all the other men who are working. And she was like the only woman that time in that firm or something. And it was beautiful to see how the woman said, I mean, she put a huge amount of money lawsuit on him. And she said, I don't need the money. I wanted you to figure out that I don't need the money. I'm capable of earning that myself, but I need that apology with the reason why you did it. And then later, there was a little newspaper article that came after that, that how resolution happens and stuff. And they were buddies later. But it was interesting to see how a sorry could take away a huge crores of lawsuit away.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay.
Prabhuji,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and like one more thing, we even need to ask the other person, like, what can I do to rectify it or like make things better?
Very
Because
good.
then, yeah, we don't like we just say sorry and then like just move on, but then we don't change anything.
Absolutely. Very good point. Yes, agreed. Okay. So we'll do one more point, and looks like we'll have to have a third session. And so another is regret. So what's the difference between regret and guilt?
Guilt is when you've done something and you're thinking about it. Regret is when you've not done something and you're thinking about it.
And it could be also when you've done something.
Yeah, but guilt makes you feel negative. Regret could give you hope also most of the time.
That is true. That point is true. That point is true.
I think
So basically, regret is more of a. I'm sorry, Abhinav, you were saying something? Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, like, maybe guilt is something like you tell yourself like for the future, and regret is something that you like something that you regret of. Like use guilt to think about what you don't want to do in the future, like, and then use regret to think about something that you've done in the past, something like that. I don't know.
Well, they're very, very close. So basically, regret typically involves some kind of sadness. You're really, really sad that you didn't do something or you did something. And whereas guilt is, you're not very happy about it, but you may not be all that. I don't know. I know there's a difference, but somehow we use two words separately. I was thinking that regret is a little softer than guilt is. Guilt typically involves some serious act that you're thinking about, whereas regret may be like you missed a party and you regret not being there, right? Another example could be you said something in a conversation that you didn't mean it, but now you regret saying it. So it's softer, it's less serious action that you regret. And yeah, I mean, that's the distinction I'm thinking about. But the problem is that even when these kind of things happen, what happens is that you get worried about what you say all the time, or you get worried about missing something all the time because it happened once. And I think Abhinav was saying that regret also means that you're constantly living in the past because you're regretting something that happened in the past. Although you could say there's anything guilt. I'm not sure I'm making a lot of sense here, so I'll move on. Fear.
So it makes sense, Prabhu. Regret is comparatively, the magnitude of pain caused by regret is very less as compared to the magnitude of
That's what I was saying.
guilt.
It's degree, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And okay, let's talk about, what time is it? 9:53. Okay, let's talk about fear. What is fear?
Inhibitions, like,
Yes, it can cause inhibitions. Yes. So fear is when you start to avoid things, which is basically inhibition. And and basically you get fear when you cannot heal yourself from some kind of a traumatic experience. And then you become unreasonably frightened of same thing happening again. So for example, you are in a car accident, and I know people that one car accident and they stop driving because they're too scared to have another accident. Or I know a family where the sister got divorced and the brother said, I'll never get married because I don't want to go through divorce. So those are examples of fear. The problem with fear is that it can actually lead to anxiety disorders, which is what the example that I gave you happened. And sometimes a fear of commitment. Again, the example I gave you. The brother does not get to be married. He doesn't want to make a commitment because he's afraid the other person will break the commitment. So that fear keeps him from getting married. So it's important that we get rid of the fear. And the only way you can get rid of your fear is that you face it. It's probably the case with most of these things, these emotional baggage. You have to face it. And hopefully by facing it, you can find a positive experience in the same situation. Like for example, I drove yesterday, 20 miles, and I came home safe and sound, which means that I will not have an accident every time I get behind wheels. So things like that. You have to face it, confront it, and hopefully come up with a positive experience in the same situation, and thus get rid of the fear. Another way to do is your support system, which, by the way, is another thing. We should all have a support system, which is more than just a mentor. You understand what I mean by support system? So we should all have that. And if we don't, we should work on having. Because, as you know, SHIT happens in life and keep happening. And when that happens, you need a support system. Otherwise, you find yourself alone, and that's never good. The support system will make you feel more comfortable when you are dealing with your experiences. Okay. All right. So it's, any questions or comments? 9:57. So I'm going to stop, and then I got lots more in terms of the types of emotional baggage. So I have to ask you, have you had enough of this? Should we go on to another topic, or do you want to continue in the next meeting on the same topic? That's your choice.
I think we can continue, Prabhu, because seems like everybody has a lot. I mean, one common thing we all have in life is struggles, right? Of some kind or the other. So maybe this 1.5 hours of conversation with you can make people get answers to some common day-to-day life. Like today's at the moment, Prabhu got some great answers, right? So something, and alongside, if we want to do a topic, that'll be good too. But this is a nice topic to have flowing as well, because this is also maybe someone's support system. You never know.
Actually, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Anybody else wants to comment? Once again, you don't have to agree with the first person who spoke. So speak your mind.
Please disagree, guys. Please.
I was hoping maybe you could talk about something that's a little more lively.
Sorry, more what?
Talk about something that's a little bit more lively.
Lightly or likely?
No, lively. Like talking about emotional baggage is kind
Like
of
something happier.
yeah.
Oh, I see.
Chirpier.
Yeah, okay. So you want to change the topic?
Just a little bit, yeah.
Okay. I was laughing because I'm thinking about the person who suggested this topic. But anyway.
Sorry.
It's okay, Abhinav. It's okay. I'm okay with that. Anybody else? Vaishnavi, Sneha, Chaitanya?
I mean, it's my first time in this class, so I think I'm okay with continuing with the same topic as well, because it'll give me a better perspective
Sure.
of what this
Sure.
class is actually going. Seeing that I've already started in this topic, would be nice to have one more discussion.
Okay. All right.
Just personally for me, yeah.
Sure. Sure. That's great. Sneha?
Like Prabhuji, it would be better if you would complete this topic, because what if we start a new topic and then we are not completing the new topic as well?
Oh, that always happens.
Yeah, so then it would be better if you would complete this topic, and then maybe next, like as Abhinav said, we could go on to a bit lighter topic.
Okay. All right. Chaitanya?
Yes, Prabhuji, I think we should finish this topic first and then move on to the next
Okay.
one.
All right. Okay.
Prabhu, we can wrap up all the misery next time in an hour. And then we can talk about the lively, chirpy things in the last half an hour. And
Sure.
then look forward to the happiness coming.
Sure. And anytime you want to hear my jokes, let me know. So, and Isha had her thumb up. So thank you, Isha. Sorry, Jennifer, I cut you off. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I said we'd love to, Prabhu. That's lively enough for us.
Okay. All right. So if everyone is okay with that, I know we could wait one more session, or at
Yeah.
least half more session.
That sounds
So,
good.
which does remind me one more question, which is, am I getting into too much detail? Am I allowing too much, digressing from the topic? Should I get a little more strict, more to the point, and that way there's a better opportunity to finish on time? So, what do you think? Again, just say it. Whatever's on your mind, say it. It's all very safe.
Just
Vaishnavi?
what I've seen so far, I think it's good that you're encouraging discussion, and even if it digresses a little bit, I think answering the questions is a very good thing, because any doubts or anything that's unclear is then cleared up, and you're not scared to ask a question that might be a little bit deviated from what the original topic is, because if you restrict it, it can be quite very like point to point. But I
Sure.
feel like allowing that discussion just allows to clear up a lot of other questions that people may have in mind.
Sure.
So I think it's a good thing that even if it digresses a little bit, it's
I think I agree with Vaishnavi, Prabhu.
of
Yeah, because
topic in general.
Okay.
I completely agree with her, because the thing is, if we don't get into discussions and the person who's initiated the question does not get that proper resolution from there, it'll still be there. It'll not get dealt with. And although I may not have the experience Chaitanya's narrating or someone else's, I could still learn from there. And I could still know, if not in my life, to implement in somebody else's who's close to me. But if we don't go into the depths of it, what happens is that's incomplete knowledge. And then when it's just like, when you see a recipe and you see half of it, you have to go back and read the recipe again. But this is nice to go through that entire process of problem solution. So it's lovely.
Okay. Thank you. Actually, I feel the same way, because what happens is that if you ask a question, it's not answered, then you keep thinking about that same question for the rest of the presentation. You're not able to put 100% focus on what's being said. So yeah, okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Any other comments or anything before we wrap up? Okay, Isha, anything from you? I know you are in train, but hopefully you can speak.
Okay, thank you so much, Prabhuji. That was really a wonderful session. I lost you somewhere in between for a few minutes or so, but I literally got a lot to learn, and I'll make sure that I'll re-listen to this video so I can power up like whatever I missed. But thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And I don't have your email address either, so hopefully Chaitanya can.
Oh yes, exactly. Because like today, I didn't even know that I had a class. That's why I just went out. I mean, although I went to the temple, but yeah, I had forgotten about it completely because it wasn't in my calendar.
Okay, so maybe Chaitanya, you can forward me her email. And that way, at least she'll have a reminder.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. All right, unless there's anything else, we can wrap up. And again, I want to thank you for great participation. I mean, that's what gives me energy, by the way, when I can see your body language and I can hear your questions, then I know that it's all worthwhile. Otherwise, it gets a little boring for me, and then basically it ends the whole sequence.
Thank you so much for your time, Prabhu, and it's your bedtime. Thank you for doing this.
Oh no, no
Going in the
problem at
night.
all. I actually enjoy it. I really enjoy it. So this pleasure for me. This may be work for you, but pleasure for me.
I'm surprised how you were in like a corporate career. You know, you should have been a professor or a teacher. I think you would have touched more lives.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's funny though, because in all my jobs, communication was a very big component. Very big component. I've made, I don't know, I was just trying to figure out one day, I must have done about 5,000 presentations in my professional career, so, and then all these classes and all that. So, yeah.
Yes. I don't know. It's nice that, at least if not at the beginning of your career, you also have this way of inspiring us now. So technically you switch professions already. Never too late. Never too late.
Never too late. It's never too late. Absolutely right. No, it's good for me also because it keeps me very busy. Like people my age, they keep saying, I have nothing to do. One guy was saying they do binge watching of Netflix, 9 hours of movies at a stretch. I think, oh my God, Another friend of mine says he'll never retire because he got nothing else in his life. So things like that, when I look at that and I say, oh my God, I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky. Yeah.
Because usually elderly people, or even you're talking about elderly, we get so lonely because we like gadgets. We want to watch movies, we want to listen, I go to the theater, we want to like go for a party and all of that, but we don't really get social. We're so apprehensive to open up. But from you, I definitely see one thing, that whatever happens in my life, whatever age I am at, I'm not going to stop talking. If you want to stop listening, stop listening. But I'm not talking.
That's your problem. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Actually, I was watching a presentation yesterday. It was a 3-minute clip. And they said they did a survey of longevity and good health. And they had a whole bunch of things, but on the top, the 2 things on the top were socializing and relationships. So those are the 2 things that give you good health and long life. Not boozing, and they had all this. Not boozing, not
even yoga.
Not that's right. Not meditation. That's right. That's right. That meditation, not high qualifications, not wealth. All those kind of things. They were very low on the scale. But socializing and relationships, good relationships, were top 2.
Yeah. Even now, if you see, it's very difficult to find that in Canada. But in India, when people retire, they go back to live with their friends, and they go to the small localities that they started their life from, and they like just time pass karna together. And they talk about so many things like grandkids, their life, and all of that on just a bench having coffee, tea, and they pass away so happy.
Yeah.
In a way where they just had tea with their friends, with their buddies. But we lack that. Luckily, we have that community. Like, I've not met any of the people on the call, but we still have that community. It's just up to us to trigger it into real life or just to keep it virtual. So thank you for making it such a beautiful family for us, Prabhu. It's amazing that there are people still, trust me, nowadays we listen to all these things as TED Talks and YouTube videos. It's gone, that culture of talking, we still listen to these things, but it's all online. It's all like you can play and you pause. So when you pause, you're not attentive anymore. Because you can pause the person. You're like, now I'm like, even if I go somewhere, I'm like, I have to take my laptop with me and go because I'll miss something, right? So this constant attentive listening really helps, because I'm not only talking about myself, I'm listening to what other people are saying, because then I remember what they like, what they don't.
Right.
And you are nurturing that in everybody whose lives you touch. So thank you, Prabhu.
Good.
Even though virtual reality is going to come and take over life, we'll be here.
Thank you for that validation, by the way. I appreciate that. Okay, thank you so much. So, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna.
everyone.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Thank
See
you,
you all next
Prabhuji.
month. Thank you. Hare Krishna.